This is Gregory with 5-Minute Catholic Apologetics, where 5 minutes of your time it may get you to the divine. Today we're going to talk about why Protestants don't have crucifixes or really any religious iconography in many of their churches. Now before we begin, let's start with a prayer. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritui Sancti. Amen. Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto, sicut erat in principio et nunc et semper et saecula saeculorum. Amen. Other compendium videos that would go well with this one is why do we have the crucifix and not the cross? Why do we focus on the corpus? And also an episode on do we worship statues? So I'll put banners in this episode for that. So many of you who are converts to Catholicism, or maybe you've just gone to different Protestant denomination services or have seen their churches, notice that a lot of them have pretty much white-walled rooms. Now, this isn't always the case. If you look more at the mainstream denominations like Presbyterianism or Lutheranism, they will have some iconography. But if you go to the Baptists and more of the kind of the Protestantal Assembly of God, Church of Christ, the more stripped down, the breakaways from the breakaways from the breakaways, you'll see a lot of these white rooms. Also, like the Mormons, they might have a painting of Jesus hanging out with kids in 1998 or something like that, but as a whole, their rooms are pretty just straightforward. Most of these places I'm talking about might have a podium and then maybe some like a whiteboard in the back so they can project songs and stuff like that. But it's very just I guess minimalistic or austere. And you're just wondering why is this? Well, some of this goes back to, of course, the 16th century. So Luther, a lot of Lutherans don't even know this, and certainly a lot of Protestants in general. Luther believed in the real presence. He believed in much of the Mariology. And he didn't have a problem necessarily with the crucifix. So the crucifix issue came more with Ulrich Zwingli, who was a Swiss reformer. He was in the 1520s. Now, he and Luther didn't get along because Zwingli didn't believe in the real presence. And Luther was not this sola scriptura guy. He had a hermeneutic. He essentially said, you have to interpret the Bible the way I interpret the Bible. And then Calvin later was the same thing. They didn't, this idea they wanted everyone to read Bibles and interpret it their own ways. No, they wanted you to believe the way they interpreted through their hermeneutic. But anyway, so Zwingli was kind of the forerunner of, I guess, the Reform movement, which is, I guess, made more famous with John Calvin and Knox in Scotland. And there was more of that tradition that eventually got rid of the walls. And Zwingli, I think, typically has the view of Zwingli is he had a misinterpretation of the Ten Commandments on the idea of idolatry. And you still see this. I know Protestants who are converts, who are still uncomfortable praying in front of a Mary statue or offering flowers to Mary or lighting a candle at a St. Joseph statue. And we have episodes as to why we do this and so forth. So we're not going to spend time here. But from that tradition, it's more from the Reformed tradition, the Calvinist Presbyterian tradition, and then all the breakaways that I mentioned, that have more problems with it than, let's say, certainly the Anglicans, which have tons of iconography, or even the Lutherans do. But Zwingli misinterpreted the statues and the crucifix as idolatry, and it's not idolatry. We're not worshiping the plaster, we're not worshiping the cross or the crucifix. They're just visible reminders of either Christ dying on the cross for us, he only died once for us, okay, Protestants, he only died once for us, or if it's statues of Joseph or Mary, whatever saints, it's just a visual representation. Just like you have a frame of your dead grandma in your house, you're not worshiping the glass frame. It's just, it helps you think of your dead grandma. It's the same thing. Statues help us remember our saints. So with the crucifix and all these things, they kind of went through the centuries of let's just get rid of everything because it's a distraction and it can lead to idolatry. And the thing is, we at this point had 1,500 years of Catholic history and theology where everybody at the time knew that no Catholics were worshiping statues. Even in the kind of classic controversy over in Byzantium, it's nobody really believed that we worshipped anything because, that mindset was so pervasive in all of Christendom. Everybody knew we didn't worship the plaster. Now, of course, there's exceptions. There's always going to be people, the outliers that worship Mary as a goddess, but that's not church teaching. You can read it in the Catechism. You can read it throughout Church Fathers and so forth. So they believed that all this stuff was idolatrous. So having a crucifix, having sometimes even a cross, and of course having the statues and so forth. But really what it is, if you strip all that down, most of the responses of the Protestant, the cynics would say the Protestant heretics of the 16th century is like anything that even smacks of Catholicism, we got to toss out. So having the visible priesthood. Now we have a community of priests. We're all priests, right? Let's throw that out. The Catholics believe in ecclesiastical hierarchy of a priesthood. Let's throw that out, even though the Lutherans still have this thing, and the Presbyterians. But the Catholics believe in purgatory. Let's throw that out. The Catholics believe in salvation is a gift, and the eucharism. No, let's believe in sola fide. The Catholics believe in infant baptism. Oh, let's get rid of infant baptism. So it's the same thing here. It's like we got to throw away anything that smacks of popery, right? Because popery is the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church vitiated or corrupted the true primitive church with all these accretions. We have episodes on this, how to dismiss all these things. It's just simply not true. But you kind of have to understand it. So when you go into a Baptist church or any of these denominations that don't have anything, really it's a misunderstanding of the concept of idolatry. It really is. They've just mishandled it, going back to Zwingli and Calvin and later people. And I would say, look, it takes away from it. Even Protestants can go to beautiful Orthodox or Catholic cathedrals, even Anglican cathedrals and churches, and they'll see the statues, and they go to St. Peter's, for example. And of course, part of them is like, oh my God, this is idolatrous, all these people are going to hell. But part of them can't resist the sublime beauty of the Catholic churches with the statuary and the iconography, and it truly lends to yourself to pray. And you juxtapose that with going into a whitewashed room where honestly, I've been in these rooms and I could literally be in an AA meeting, I could be in a business room at a corporation, I could be in a Holiday Inn conference room. There is nothing in this room that would suggest this is a room of worship. And I know Protestant pastors who kind of adhere to the blank room would say that's the point, and it's where 2 or 3 gather in your name, that's all you need. But no, you are detached from Christian tradition. Christian tradition was, we had beautiful churches. We have iconography and all these things. And you broke away from that because really you're in rebellion and you wanted to break away from anything that smacks of Catholicism. And we've talked about in the 5 themes running through the New Testament, one of the things that St. Paul and Peter and St. John warn about is false teaching, false prophets, and so forth. And so, I don't want to malign the Protestant pastors who believe that a whitewashed room is a good thing, but it's not a good thing. It takes away from prayer, whereas having all these things, all these accoutrements in it, lends yourself to prayer. And if you have the right mindset, the mindset that our church fathers had and apostolic tradition have, that these are not idolatrous, they just help lend us to pray, then you have a better mindset of how it's supposed to be, and maybe you would bring these things back. Of course, we know that they're not going to bring these things back, but again, there's no reason to have a whitewashed room that is so sterile and empty when you can have the beauty of statues and crosses and stained glass and all this beauty. Guys, post in the comments. Let me know if you agree or disagree. I'd like to hear from you. Hit the notification button so these episodes come fresh to you, and share with others. Until next time, take care. God bless.